So, according to this, if I'm really good, I might break 300 miles. Hmm. Yeah. So this is actually an interesting test because this is one of my regular drives, and in my Volt, um, this was that segment that I would typically make in around 8 to 9 kilowatt hours of energy used, but typically closer to 9. Like, so on my return trip from here, typically in these conditions, I would get between or pretty close to about 45 miles to the gallon in the Volt. So the Bolt EV should be able to do it, fairly efficiently, but not as efficiently as this trip coming in. This is primarily due to traffic, but as you can see, I mean, there's still about 10-15 miles of it that was at 60 to 70 miles an hour. So it's not all super hyper efficient driving. My guess is the steady state speed to hit 300 miles on a single charge. My guess would be if you did a steady state speed of probably about 35 to 40 miles an hour. So basically, if you just put this on a track and did circles at 35 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour, you'd pretty easily hit 300 miles. But I think you reduce that speed by even 10 to 15 miles an hour down to about 20 to 25, and I'm reasonably certain you'll hit 400 to 500 miles, somewhere in between there. Possibly closer to 500 miles, but until someone actually has the patience to test it out, we'll never really know. And again, notice this is also at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm reasonably certain, if traffic conditions were normal, which is still pretty heavy traffic, but it's actually heavy traffic throughout the trip, and the typical 70 to 80 degree temperatures, I'm sorry, that it would, I'd normally be driving in, I actually think this efficiency could be even better. Probably um probably about 6.5 miles per kilowatt hour would be my guess. But again, this is the more efficient side of the trip. The rest of the trip is all freeway, but it still tends to be fairly efficient. I'd look to, and actually I might do a follow up with this. I'll reset this right now for the return trip, but I'd expect to see probably pretty close to 4 miles to, yeah, probably about 4 miles per kilowatt hour on the return trip. All right. So it looks like I undershot a little bit. I didn't quite hit the 4 miles per kilowatt hour that I kind of expected for this return trip. Now it's basically all freeway. Maybe the first 5-6 miles of it is slow 55-mile-an-hour freeway, but the rest of it is pretty much 65 to 70 miles an hour. The thing I had forgotten about, though, was that there was actually a cold front coming in, and so it actually warmed back up to 47 degrees. It was down to about 41, 42 for most of the trip. So as you can see, I still haven't used quite half the battery pack yet, and it's 114 miles. So I mean, just doubling that, if this were sort of the typical drive, then yeah, I would only end up with about 228 miles of range. But again, like low 40s and 60 to 70 miles an hour for most of the drive isn't going to be typical. Um, and I mean, you can see where the efficiency sort of was, but uh, basically this whole trip back was fairly inefficient. So anyway, so I'm gonna leave on this right now because, like I said, in the Volt, in much better conditions, by that I mean like 70 to 80 degree temperatures, I'd be getting about 45 miles to the gallon. So in much colder temperatures, the Bolt EV is still very close to its EPA rating. So it seems pretty consistent. And if I'm driving at a more efficient pace, it's stating that I could have as much as 175 miles of range left, um, and that plus the the remaining 114 would be putting me pretty close to 300 miles. So again, this is more just typical driving. Um, it, I took a little bit of a front, I think, at the way some of the articles had talked about the Bolt EV only hitting 300 miles in, like perfect conditions. That hasn't really been my experience. Typical driving will net you very close to that. So if you're even slightly efficient in your driving and your driving conditions, I think you could expect to actually hit very close to 300 miles on a regular basis. So we'll see. I don't know what's up for the weekend, so maybe I'll go for a drive just to see if I can use up the remainder of the battery and end up somewhere near a fast charger. So, all right, guys. So now, I decided to go on another little trip. I reset this energy meter, and now clearly this was different than my freeway run back home last night. So instead of doing 60 to 70 miles an hour in 40 to 45 degree temperatures, this was closer to 50, 40, yeah, probably average speed of about 40 miles an hour in 50-degree temperatures. It was a good mixture of city streets and country back roads where the speeds ranged from 25-mile an hour zone, 35-mile an hour zone, 45-mile an hour zone, up to 50, 55-mile an hour zone. So it was a pretty good mixture of just what you'd expect for like I said, back country roads or maybe city driving. And, if you're going to be driving 300 miles on a charge, well, you're probably going to have a mixture like this. So I wouldn't expect this to be typical, but based on what I was seeing, if you want to average 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which would be what would be required to go 300 miles on a charge, you wouldn't have to be doing anything exceptional. If it were at, say, 70-degree temperatures, I'm reasonably certain you could do it on probably around 50-mile an hour steady state driving, uh, plus or minus a few miles an hour. So it'll probably take until summertime or at least springtime until someone can really kind of figure that out. But yeah, I think steady state driving of around 50 miles an hour would net you close to a 300 miles on a single battery charge. So I failed miserably, came up short of 300 miles. Oh, how terrible. Um, yeah, my energy meter's pretty low, but I just pulled into the DC fast charging. There's someone charging here already. So, I would have had to wait anyway. And so now there's a Leaf on the other station. Luckily, she was nice enough to take just the Chatamo. So the dual charger is still available. Anyway, I'm gonna go do some shopping, clean up around here. But yeah, so anyway, that was kind of the point of this whole thing is 300 miles is pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but under normal average driving conditions, yeah, you'll be able to do it just fine. So, um, again, though, and this is a mixture. This is a mixture of, stop and go freeway, high speed freeway, city driving, country road driving. But anyway, yeah. So I figure I'm probably down to about, well, I mean, you see, it's 59.1 kilowatt hours used, and probably well, below 5% state of charge. I'll verify on the station when I plug in. But yeah, that's why I said I don't like the whole idea of perfect conditions you'll hit 300. No, you'll hit 300 just if you're not driving like a rube. So anyway, yeah, I've talked on this issue enough. I'm gonna go DC fast charge and go do my grocery shopping. All right, guys.